Hello everyone, welcome to my tutorial. Today I'm going to talk about the one-to-many relationship. If you look at the slide, there are two tables over here. One is the club and the other one is the event. Within the club, we have two fields. One is the club ID and the club name, where the club ID is the primary key. And in the event table, we have the event ID, which is the primary key, and then we have club ID and then event name. We can see that these both entities are related with a primary key foreign key relationship, and the table and the field over here is the club ID, which is kind of making the relationship. If I look into the table over here, I can see that the club has these 1, 2, 3, 4 entries, which is the field is the club ID and the club name. And over here in the event, I have these fields, and you can see that there is a club ID over here, which is the foreign key. If we look at over here for the club ID 1, which is football club, and the event is soccer game 1. And then the math quest, the club ID is 3. And if we look over here, it is called the science club. So that means that one club can have many events. Now, the next question is that how we are going to implement this relationship within the JPA framework. And for that, we need to have these two annotations, one-to-many and many-to-one. So this is what I just said before, that one row in a table relates to multiple rows of another table. Relationship can be unidirectional or bidirectional. This is something important, that within the unidirectional, the flow is from one position to the other, and the bidirectional is like we can maneuver or we can move from both the sides. With the unidirectional, many to one, so the unidirectional can be again of two type, many to one, can be accessed the relationship from the child side. And of course, I mean, if we look over here, if we are going to say that club ID and then event ID, club ID, event name, and the relationship here is one to many. So in the case of if we look over here, that unidirectional many to one can be accessed the relationship from the child side. So in case of many to one to one unidirectional, how does it work? That we can access the club information, from event, okay, because we are accessing many to one. So this is the many side, this is the one side. So we are accessing the club information through the event. And then there is another one which is saying the one to many can be accessed the relationship from the parent side. So we are saying that one to many, and how we are accessing from this side, okay, from this side. So accessing event information from club, and this is again unidirectional. We cannot get the information from the other side. The other one is the other type of relationship is called the bidirectional, and can be accessed the relationship from either the parent or the child side, and this is the recommended practice. So in a bidirectional, we can access in the both way. So that means, let's say we can access from the both. So that means if we are given the club, we can find out the event information, or when the event information is given, we can get the club information from there. And this is what we are calling the bidirectional. So the bidirectional can be accessed relationship from either the parent or child side, and which is again the recommended practice, and can access both club and event from both sides. So there are again few things. Mapped by property tells which property is defined as parent class in child class. Okay, so the mapped by should be in the parent side. Many to one, where we are going to define the many to one, tells which side is the owning side of the child or the child class, and then join column references the mapped column. So let's take an example, or how it looks like whenever we are going to write the actual code. Okay, so let's say we have to define first over here entity, and then we are telling that table name equals club, and then public class club, and then we have a primary key ID, and then column name annotation. So name equals club ID, and this is of, let's say, long club ID, and then we're saying one to many, and then mapped by equals, I'm coming to this, and then private set new hash set. Okay, so now this is one part, and let me write the other part, which is entity, and then the table name equals event, and then I'm saying public class event, and then I have defined this as ID primary key, column name equals event ID. This is the database property, and then this is ID, and then I'm using this annotation many to one, and then I'm saying join column name equals club ID, and then club. Okay, so now if we look at the pattern over here, this is from the database table, or from the database perspective. This is the one side, this is the many side. But from the JPA perspective, this is called the owning side. Owning side. Okay, now we have to make sure, like in a bidirectional, we have to put the many to one and this information join column where on the owning side. So this information has to come on the owning side. Okay, and the mapped by clause, let's say one to many, this thing should be coming to the child side. Okay, should be over here, the parent. Okay, over here. Now the mapped by is going to tell. Now let's look at the slide over here. See, the mapped by property tells which property is defined as parent class in child class. So over here, if we look at over here, the mapped by is something that is telling that which class, over here again, it is telling that which is defined as parent class in child class. So parent class is this one. This is the club is defined over here. So this parent class mapped by club is defined where? Is defined over here. This is what we need to make sure. So again, just to summarize, that in a bidirectional one, this is the owning side, and which one is the owning side? The many side is the owning side, and in the owning side we have to say many to one and the join column, and the join column should be the column name which is going to connect both these two both sides of the tables, and then we have to define the parent class over here. And then in this, the other class, we define one to many, and we are telling mapped by, and mapped by what? Parent class, which is defined in the child class. Okay, and then we are going to set, or we are going to tell private set, and you define a new hash set or whatever. So the purpose of defining set over here is that this entity or this club can have many items. Okay, so this club can have many events, so that's why we need to handle with a set. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you.